I got a call Friday from a pastor in Florida, and he said, we have a young lady that is traveling across the United States. She left Florida and she's headed to California to bring awareness to a cause, and we're trying to find a place for her to stay Saturday and Sunday, and was wondering if you could help. And I said, sure, we'll do what we can do. And that's how we came to be affiliated with Athena. I don't want to take anything from what she's going to share. I just know that what she shared at our house last night was a blessing, so I want to take that opportunity to share it with you. So Athena, you have as much or as little time as you would like. You guys, I would strongly encourage to listen and ask whatever questions that you would like when she's finished. So, Athena, please.
Good morning. When he was talking about Mother's Day and stuff, I was thinking that I have some kids too, but I really don't. They're just kids that I've mentored over the years. So I'll explain that later. Basically, like he said, I am traveling across the United States, and I am raising attention for clean water in Africa. And this is something that kind of came about over a period of time. It wasn't just something that I just decided to do, because honestly, if you would have told me a year and a half ago that I was going to be running and biking across the United States, I would have looked at you like you were completely crazy. That was not something that I had in my plan, and God can definitely arrange your plans and change things the way He wants to if you let Him. So let me just kind of explain a little bit of background on me. I grew up in a Christian family. My parents, we always went to church and stuff like that, and it really didn't take effect in my life until I was probably 5 or 6 years old. I don't remember the exact age, but I remember, realizing what God had done for me, realizing, He had died on the cross for me, and He had forgiven me for every sin that I had committed. I realized that I needed Him to save me. And so it was at that time when I really gave my life to Christ, and it really didn't start forming me and molding me until probably I was 12 or 13 years old. I remember going to a summer camp and God really teaching me, when you trust me with your life, it means giving back to Him, not just, sitting there and soaking in and taking in everything. It means, doing something with your life, because what God had done for me. And so I started having a real passion for missions at that point. And I remember, missionaries coming into my church and talking about their experiences in other countries, and just seeing, what God was doing over there. And I was like, wow, that seems like something I'd really love to try out. But at the time, the church I was going to, we weren't taking mission trips with the youth group. It was something that the older people did. So I always thought of it, okay, when I get older, I'll see what I can do. And it was still something that, I still had that passion for. And directly after high school, I spent a year going to a Bible institute in Florida, and God really taught me a lot about His Word there. There was no English, no math, and that was awesome. It was just the Word of God, and teaching me, this is, I know it doesn't look like a Bible, it's all taped up, but this is God's love letter to me. This is something that He wrote to me, and it means something. Like, it means more than just words on a page. It's guidelines for our life. And so I was still continuing to talk to people about, what I wanted to do with missions work and stuff like that. And a lady who was mentoring me at the time, discipling me, told me, if you feel like this is something God has called you to do, why don't you take that step of faith? Why don't just talk about this? This is something that you need to actually step out and do. And I was like, okay, well, how do I go about doing this? I had no idea, where to start. And so I just started looking into various organizations online. I didn't even know what country I felt called to. So just looking through different things, and came across an organization by the name of Empower a Child. And basically they were working in Uganda and Kenya, and their the forgotten youth of these countries. So the orphans, the street kids, the juvenile delinquents, the kids without families, basically, who needed that love and attention, and just sharing Bible stories with them and sharing the love of Jesus with them. And that really stood out to me. I loved working with kids. And so I was like, okay, well, this seems like, God is opening this door. And I had gotten in contact with the organization, and they said, yeah, you can come join us, just raise your own support and stuff like that. And so I went back to talk to the lady who was mentoring me, and I asked her, how long do you think I should go? And she's like, well, this is my advice. She's like, if you feel like missions is something God has called you to, don't just step out for a short-term period of time. Try it out long-term, because that way you're going to get the feel for the good and the bad, not just the happy honeymoon period of going on a missions trip. And so that was hard, because I was like, well, I had never been away from home for very long. I'd gone to this year at the Bible Institute, but that was 20 minutes away from home. Kenya is a completely other side of the world over here, and going away for a long period of time is kind of scary. And so, but I really felt like 1 year was what God was saying. And I said, well, that's so long. I don't know if God is going to provide the support for that long of a time over there. And so I had raised about 6 months of support, and I decided, okay, well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to buy this one-way ticket over there, and we'll see how long he provides for. And my parents thought I was a little bit crazy. They were worried. They're like, you're buying a one-way ticket to Africa? When are you coming home? And so I just felt like that's what God was calling me to do, though. And I bought that one-way ticket over there. And to make that long story short, God kept having that support roll in while I was over there. 7 months came in, 8 months, 9 months, until it was 1 year that God had provided for me to be over there. And then I knew he was calling me home. But being over there changed my perspective on life completely. We see on TV, the hungry children and the poverty that is over there. But until I experienced that firsthand, until I saw what those people were living like, it never really took effect on me. And going into these areas, we were working in the city mainly, and in the slum area of the city, these people are living in mud houses. The families, you have 5 kids, a mom and a dad and a grandmother living in a house, and it's just real small, as big as maybe a closet, and they're living all in there together on less than $1 a day. They're sometimes not having maybe one meal a day. And so that was something, it just broke my heart seeing these people living like this. And I was asking God, how come I was, privileged with this gift of being born here in this country, where I never had to, go out and search for food in the garbage. I never had to worry about when I was going to have my next shower because we didn't have water. And so I really started thinking about those things, and 2 commandments that God kept bringing to my mind. And the first one was, to love him with all our heart, soul, and might. And the second one was to love our neighbors as ourselves. And those are the greatest commandments. That's what Christ said. And I was thinking, well, if that's the command, to love my neighbor as myself, am I loving my neighbor enough to make sure that they have their needs met when I'm making sure that I have mine met all the time? When I'm thirsty, I make sure I get myself a drink of water. When I'm hungry, I make sure that I get food. But am I loving my neighbors, not just here in this country, but across the world, enough to make sure that they have those same needs met, I guess? And so, but I was thinking, one person, I can't change the world, right? That can't happen. And no, you can't, but with God's help, he can definitely do some pretty great things. And so just started thinking of, what is the greatest need out here? We were working with these kids. It was awesome to see just the smiles on their faces when they would come in to hear our Bible stories, because these kids had absolutely nothing, but they were so content just hearing the word of God. And so I was thinking about, okay, what is something that they need a lot of? And, they didn't have shoes on their feet. They didn't have adequate clothing. They didn't have food. But the biggest thing that stood out to me was that need for clean water that they didn't have. In the city, in the slum area, they didn't have running water. In the villages that we visited, they didn't have electricity or running water either. So they were walking, on average, it was 4 miles one direction to these dirty rivers to get their water. And I don't know if you know the results of that, but I started looking up, what is the cause? What happens when these people drink this dirty water? Blindness, parasites, and ultimately death. And some statistics that I found out were that about 1.1 billion people in our world don't have access to clean water. That means they can't drive 100 or 200 miles and even find clean water. It's just not accessible whatsoever. And so that's about, I don't know if you know how many people live in our world. There's about 7 billion, I think. And so 1.1 billion is about 1/7 of our world's population that doesn't have access to clean water. And that's a lot. We don't see that here. Like, we have, you can flip on the little tap and water comes out, and it's, most of the time it's clean. I mean, we complain we have too much iron or too much sulfur or something in our water, but it's still water. It's drinkable. It's there. And so just started thinking about those things, and I knew God had given me the ability to run, and I had a passion for doing that, but I know He had also given me that passion to see people have clean water, and kind of thinking about different things I could do to maybe make a difference. And I knew God was calling me to come back here to the States. And so just knowing those things that God had gifted me with, and hearing about other people who had biked or run across the United States for, diabetes or cancer or some other kind of cause, thought, why not clean water? And I knew I couldn't have made an impact at all just staying at home and doing something. This was something I felt like I needed to tell people all the way across the United States. And so I started January 3rd and started on foot. I was covering about 20 miles a day, just stopping in towns, and God just was providing for everything that I needed. I had a jogging stroller that I pushed with just basic necessities and over my head to sleep at night. Families that would take me in and feed me. As you can tell, I'm pretty healthy. I'm not starving at all. And it just taught me, when you put yourselves in those uncomfortable situations to do something for God, He takes care of you. He provides for your needs. And that's something I've learned. And I made it about midway through Texas on foot, and my foot started turning blue and swelling up, and I was like, okay, something is wrong. And the house that I was staying in that weekend, I continued to run on my foot all week, and it was just getting worse and worse. It was hurting to even walk on it. And the pastor and his wife that I was staying with, the wife was a nurse, and she said, we need to go get this checked out. We need to figure out what's wrong with you. And got it x-rayed, found out I had a stress fracture from running in my foot. And that kind of broke me down. I was like, well, I'm only halfway through Texas. Like, is this where God wanted me to end? Is my mission complete? Like, I feel like I haven't completed everything. And the pastor and his wife came up to me while I was sorting all these thoughts in my head, and they just said, how would you feel if you considered, finishing on a bike, if we purchased you a bike? And I was like, wow, answer to prayer completely. Like, God's not done with this. And so it was humbling because, you want to say, oh, I ran across the entire United States. But I think that was definitely God breaking me down, showing me, you can't have that feeling about this. It's not about how you get there. It's not if you get there on foot, on a bike, or if you crawl. Like, you're going to get there, and it's about the mission behind it. It's not at all about what you're doing. So basically, that's kind of my story. That's why I'm on a bike now. And basically, my destination is San Diego. I'll be there in about a month. But just being able to meet people along the way, see the body of Christ work together to, provide for me, and seeing that my world is bigger than just my little town back home or even just Africa. Like seeing the entire spectrum of different kinds of churches and things like that, it's been quite the experience. So one verse I wanted to share with you guys, and it's from 1 John. If I can find it. And then I'll let you guys ask questions because I might have rambled. I don't know. It's 1 John chapter 3, and it starts in verse 16. And it says, "By this we know love, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and truth." And this is something that God is still teaching me every single day. Just knowing that I have things. Like, I have material goods. I have way more than I even need. And trying to figure out, what do I do with these things? What do I do with the gifts that God has blessed me with? Do I hold on to them out of fear that if I give them up, I'm not going to have anything? Or do I give them away knowing that God can bless someone else? So that's basically it. Do you guys? Oh, yes, I do have a website. On my website is where you guys can donate to World Vision, is the organization that the clean water is coming through. Basically what they can do is step into those areas where they need that clean water, and they're able to drill wells, and that's permanent thing in those areas where those people can have that access to clean water. It can take them out of their poverty. It is also a way for World Vision to step in and teach them about who the living water is, who Jesus is. And so my website, I have some papers actually that I can hand out when you guys are done, or I can just say it from up here. Okay, I'll say it. It's www.coast, number 2, like the symbol, and then another coast, and then number 4, the symbol, cleanwater.webs.com. Yeah. Yes.
What school did you go to in Florida?
The Bible College. It was the Word of Life Bible Institute. And I don't know if anyone's heard of that. Probably not.
Where was it located?
It's located in Hudson, Florida, but they have another campus in Schroon Lake, New York, and they're kind of an international thing. They have campuses in Hungary and Philippines and Argentina. So.
Tell them the story about the water in Salt River Canyon.
The water in, yes. Well, the other day when I was biking, I was coming through the Salt River Canyon, and I don't know if you guys know what that is from living out here, but it's really steep down and really steep back up. And I had about a gallon of water with me that day, and I thought that was enough to hold me through, but I sucked down all that water, and I had absolutely nothing. When I was coming back up that canyon, I was needing water, and I was like, okay, God, I don't think I'm going to make it all the way to Globe without your help, or else somebody's going to have to stop and give me water. And it was not even 10 minutes later, a car stopped on the side of the road, and the guy was like, do you need something? And I was like, well, actually, I kind of need some water if you don't mind. And he pulled out a bag. He had 2 bottles of water and a bottle of Gatorade and handed it to me, and I knew that was just God, because people don't stop very often and offer me water. So yeah, that was a neat experience. Oh, okay, another story. God has just done crazy things while I've been on this journey. I had a patch of goat heads, which are those like pricker things. Well, I don't know, they're like the little spiny balls, all the thorns that come out, and I had run over them, and all my tires had gone flat that day, and I had patched up all my tires and kept on going, but my front tire on my bike just kept going flat. And so I got to the place that I was going to, and this was last Friday, and my tire had gone flat again, and I just kept repatching it, and for some reason it would not hold air. And so I went to bed that night, and I said, okay, whatever, I'm just going to wake up in the morning, blow it up, make it to the next town, and then get a new tube or something. And so I blew it up the next morning. It was completely flat, remember, and started my journey, and it never went flat. And to this day, I have not repatched that tire, so it's been over a week, and that tire has kept its air. So I don't know what happened, but it was God. So, any more questions? On the bike, it fluctuates. I try to maintain, because some of the towns are really far apart. I've ranged anywhere between 20 to 65 miles on the bike a day. So it just depends. Yeah.
Once you hit San Diego, what's next?
Well, I'm going to go home and try to figure out what God is calling me to do next. I've had several opportunities to go back to Africa come up. Some various organizations and schools and stuff have offered me positions, and so that's ultimately that's my plan, is to be back in Africa full time. But just figuring out how to go about doing that is the process. So making that a permanent transition is what I want to do, and figuring out how to do that. So yeah. Any more questions?
What a blessing for somebody 20 years old.
Well, thank you for letting me ramble.